October 14th, 1066. Dawn breaks over the English countryside as two massive armies prepare for what will become the most decisive battle in medieval history. King Harold's exhausted Saxon warriors grip their battle axes and shields, still bloodied from defeating Viking invaders just days before. Across the field, Duke William's Norman cavalry adjusts their chainmail and checks their lances, ready to claim the English throne through force of arms. It's a clash that will reshape an entire civilization. But let's change one thing. Anchored off the coast of Hastings sits something that shouldn't exist for another 900 years. The HMS Daring, a Type 45 destroyer from 2010, bristling with guided missiles and radar systems that can see through time itself. So what happens when 21st century naval warfare meets the brutal reality of medieval combat? Can advanced technology rewrite one of history's most famous battles? Or will even the most sophisticated warship on Earth struggle against the chaos of 11th century warfare? This isn't your average medieval warship. The HMS Daring looks like it was designed by engineers who had a serious grudge against enemy aircraft. At 500 feet of angular steel and cutting-edge electronics, this floating fortress packs enough firepower to level entire cities while remaining virtually invisible to any radar system built before the year 2000. Here's what this technological marvel brings to 1066. The Saxon radar array can track hundreds of targets simultaneously while calculating the trajectory of every arrow in a medieval battlefield. We're talking about sensors so advanced they can detect a sparrow at 200 miles while brewing tea and updating the ship's weather forecast. The ship's brain processes information faster than William's entire army could count to 10. The main armament consists of 48 vertical launch system cells loaded with Aster missiles that can swat flying objects out of the sky with surgical precision. Each missile thinks faster than the greatest scholars of the age and travels at speeds that would make medieval minds question the very nature of reality. The ship also carries a 4.5-inch naval gun capable of hurling high explosive shells 12 miles inland with pinpoint accuracy. To put this in perspective, the longest range weapon at Hastings can maybe reach 300 yards on a good day with favorable wind conditions. Powered by advanced gas turbines generating 60,000 horsepower, the Daring can cruise at 29 knots while making less noise than a monastery during prayer time. In 1066, this represents technology so advanced it might as well be operated by actual wizards casting genuine spells. But even this floating supercomputer faces unique challenges in medieval England. Duke William didn't bring just any army to Hastings. He assembled roughly 7,000 of Europe's most experienced warriors. Norman knights who've perfected the art of mounted warfare through decades of continental campaigns. These aren't peasants with farming tools. We're talking about professional soldiers encased in the finest chainmail money can buy, riding war horses bred specifically for combat, wielding weapons forged by master smiths who've dedicated their lives to creating instruments of death. The Norman cavalry represents the cutting edge of 11th century military technology. Their kite shields can deflect arrows and sword strikes, while their lances can punch through most armor of the era. These knights have conquered Sicily, carved out kingdoms in southern Italy, and now they're here to claim England through superior tactics and raw courage. Supporting this mounted elite are crossbow units with weapons that can penetrate chainmail at close range, plus infantry formations trained in continental warfare tactics. Duke William himself is no ordinary medieval warlord. He's a strategic genius who spent years planning this invasion, studying English defenses, and preparing for every possible scenario. Well, almost every scenario. On the Saxon side stands King Harold Godwinson with his Huscarls, the most feared infantry in northern Europe. These axe-wielding warriors can cleave a man in half with a single swing and have proven their worth in countless battles against Viking raiders. Their massive two-handed axes can split shields, shatter swords, and turn armored knights into very expensive casualties. Harold's army also includes the Fyrd, local militia armed with spears, swords, and an intimate knowledge of the English countryside. They're fighting for their homes, their families, and their way of life. That kind of motivation can make ordinary men accomplish extraordinary things, even against overwhelming odds. The stage is set for a collision between three different eras of warfare technology. Medieval combat at its most brutal, represented by two armies that have perfected the art of killing with muscle and steel, suddenly interrupted by weapon systems that operate at the speed of light. At 0800 hours, Harold's scouts report strange smoke rising from the sea. What they're witnessing is the HMS Daring's gas turbines spinning up to combat readiness. The ship's crew has been monitoring both armies through thermal imaging and radar sweeps since before dawn. To them, watching medieval warfare unfold is like observing ants through a magnifying glass. Every movement, every formation change, every tactical decision is tracked and analyzed by computer systems that process battlefield data faster than human thought. Captain Morrison studies the tactical display from the ship's bridge. Two armies of roughly equal size preparing to bash each other's brains out with sharp metal objects. From his perspective, it's simultaneously fascinating and horrifying. The Normans are forming up in three divisions with cavalry positioned for maximum impact. The Saxons have taken the high ground and formed their famous shield wall, a defensive formation that stopped Viking invasions for generations. But Morrison faces a critical decision. His ship carries enough firepower to end this battle in minutes, but the political ramifications could reshape the entire course of human history. Does he intervene? And if so, on which side? The Norman conquest, will historians argue it was necessary for England's development bring dramatic changes to English society, language, and culture. Some into a major European power. Others claim it destroyed a unique Anglo-Saxon civilization that could never be rebuilt. The first arrows begin flying at 0900 hours. Norman crossbow bolts whistle through the morning air, while Saxon archers return fire from their elevated position. It's a deadly game of medieval artillery, with both sides probing for weaknesses in enemy formations. The daring sensors track every projectile with scientific precision, calculating trajectories, wind speed, and impact probabilities. Then William orders his cavalry charge. 700 Norman knights thunder across the field, lances leveled, destriers pounding the earth like mechanized thunder. It's one of the most magnificent and terrifying sights in medieval warfare. Tons of muscle, steel, and fury bearing down on the Saxon line at full gallop. The ground literally shakes under the impact of thousands of hooves. The Saxon shield wall braces for impact. Huscarls lock shields and plant their feet, two-handed axes ready to receive the charge. Behind them, spearmen level their weapons through gaps in the wall, creating a bristling hedge of steel points. This is the moment that will decide England's future, as Norman lances meet Saxon shields in a collision that echoes across the battlefield. At 0920 hours, Captain Morrison makes his choice. The 4.5-inch gun erupts with a sound of industrial thunder, sending a high explosive shell screaming 12 miles inland at 3 times the speed of sound. The round detonates directly between the charging cavalry and the Saxon shield wall, creating a crater where medieval warfare just became obsolete. Horses rear in terror, knights are thrown from their mounts, and both armies freeze in absolute bewilderment at the impossible explosion that just rewrote the laws of physics. Within seconds, the HMS Daring's Aster missiles streak overhead like fallen stars, each one precisely targeted to create maximum psychological impact with minimal casualties. Explosions bracket